like to call the public hearing meeting to order. Would you please take roll?
Councilman Acord.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Stewart.
Here.
Councilman Griecu.
Here.
Councilman Rudolph.
Here.
Councilwoman McKibben. Here. Councilwoman Sanders. Here. Councilwoman Miklick. Or
Here.
Councilman Miklick.
Thank you. That was my sensitive side.
Well, we have, tonight, we have two resolutions and an ordinance that we need to hold a public hearing on. Clerk, would you read the two resolutions by title only?
Resolution 2741 is a declaratory resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo designating property described herein as an economic revitalization area and primarily property tax exemption resolution for real property taxes.
Should I tell them this pertains to Chrysler? No.
Resolution 2742 is a declaratory resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo designating property described herein as an economic revitalization area and primarily property tax exemption resolution for the personal property taxes.
Do we have any comments, questions, or concerns from the floor, from the public? Hearing none, do we pass the...
Let's go on to the next.
Would you read, please read the ordinance 6954, please, by title only.
$69.54 is a vacation of an alley between Jackson Street and Jefferson Street on the east side of North Washington Street.
Are there any comments, questions, or concerns from the public, from the floor? Hearing none, we'll call this public meeting to adjourn. Thanks. Call to order on the council meeting tonight. Could we please have an invocation? Cindy?
Yes, I'd like to invite Pastor Shane Peters to the microphone. He's from Judson Road Christian Church. Thank you for coming. For anyone that wishes to be seated, you may be seated. After this, we will do the pledge following. Thank you for coming.
Lord God, we thank you for who you are. Father, we ask that our actions would honor you, our words would honor you. Lord, we know that you've given us our minds and you've given us passion, Lord, that we want to see this city succeed, Lord, and there's going to be a lot of different views and thoughts on that, Father. We want to honor you with how we're living, because this life is temporary, and once it's over, we got to answer for it. So, Father, we just ask that in times where we want to be heard, we're also able to listen to the other side and respect. Father, we just love you. And it's in your Son's name we pray. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got ahead of it.
Councilwoman McKibben, I'd like you to offer what you have to offer tonight.
Okay. The members of the Kokomo Common Council would like to have a moment of silence and to acknowledge the passing of Howard County Councilman Jeff Stout. Our community lost a true servant with your passing, so at this time we would ask for you to bow your heads and just give a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, would you read the roll?
Councilman Acord.
I'm here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Stewart.
Here.
Councilman Griecu.
Here.
Councilman Rudolph.
Here.
Councilwoman McKibben.
Here.
Councilwoman Sanders.
Here.
Councilman Miklick.
Here.
Thank you. We need to approve the minutes of the council meetings on January the 27th, 2020. Do I have a
Second.
motion?
I move to approve the council minutes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, do we have any communications from the public at this point? Okay. Do we have any communications from the council? Hearing none, I would like for you to read Clerk Ordinance 6950. The what? The what reports?
Committee reports.
Oh, good. And, do we have any committee reports? Hearing none, now can we get to ordinance 6954?
Nope.
Resolution
Resolution
2743.
27.
Switch there.
Oh, they switched it?
Yeah.
Okay. Resolution 2743. They switched it on me.
Resolution 2743, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo setting forth final action in determining that the qualifications for economic revitalization area have been met, approving real property tax abatement, and confirming resolution number 2741 dated January 27th, 2020, regarding FCA LLC.
Do I hear them?
Throw it to Councilman Collins.
Great.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt Resolution 2743.
I second that.
We got a motion and a second to signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
You got to throw it to Councilman Collins to talk about it. Ray?
Ray,
can you
go
tell us
ahead.
about
Good.
it?
Mr. President, this is a resolution concerning, of course, 2741 with the tax abatements for Chrysler. Just some of the highlights was going to be a $400 million investment here in the community and creation of 120 new jobs and the retention of many other jobs. And I would just urge the council move to adopt Resolution 2743.
Support.
All right. Have any questions from the
Any
audience?
questions? Comments, concerns? All in favor?
Mr. President, I would just like to thank the folks from FCA that are here tonight and let them know how much we appreciate them being a part of the community. Thanks for that and your whole team.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2744.
Yep.
Resolution 2744, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kokomo setting forth final action approving personal property tax abatement and confirming resolution number 2742 dated January 27th, 2020 regarding FCA.
Councilman Collins?
Mr. President, I move that we adopt Resolution 2744.
Second.
Mr. President, this is just a sister resolution to 2743, adopting the resolution. As the highlights I explained earlier, and I also would like to echo Mr. Miklick's thing, appreciating Fiat Chrysler's commitment to Kokomo as an employer and a community partner. And I move that we adopt Resolution 2744.
Any comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're ready for ordinance 6954.
Yes.
6954.
Yes.
6954.
Is between Jackson Street is a vacation of an alley between Jackson and Jefferson Street on the east side of Washington Street. It was set for public hearing today's date, February 10th, 2020.
Second read.
Second
Cindy?
reading.
Cindy?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm asking for passage of ordinance 6954 on second reading. The proposed, sorry,
Support.
thank you. The proposed vacation is on the east side of Washington Street between West Jefferson and West Jackson Street. There's no entrance in the alley on Washington Street. The area is 16 by 40 feet or 640 square feet, and it's owned by the city. To the east of that is a designated pedestrian walkway, so basically that alley's already been vacated. And there are public utilities which are maintained in the alley, and per statute, an easement is there so that they can go in and do any work that they need to do.
We've got a motion. Any questions? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Cindy. Ordinance 6956.
An R4 is a medium-density urban residential to an IS, which is an institutional uses. It is located at 1207 North Armstrong Street, Kokomo, 46901. The petitioner is the Roman Catholic Diocese of Lafayette. It's the second reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm asking for passage of ordinance 6956 on second reading.
Support.
Paul Wyman of the Wyman Group, on behalf of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Lafayette, is requesting a zone change from R4 medium-density urban residential to IS institutional use for property at 1207 North Armstrong Street in order to be in compliance with their thrift store and pantry. The diocese owns the property, a house on Armstrong across from the rectory. Basically, it's been operating, but they just want to come under compliance. Their previous location on South Union Street was closed, and so that's what this rezoning is for.
Are there any questions? Comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance 6957.
Is a rezoning 3-Z-20. It is an OC office commercial to a C1 small to medium scale general commercial. It's located at 1401 East Hopper Street, Kokomo, Indiana, 46902. The petitioner is 123 Superior LLC. Second reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm asking for passage of ordinance 6957 on second reading.
Support.
Paul Wyman of the Wyman Group, on behalf of 123 Superior LLC, is requesting a zone change from OC office commercial to C1 small to medium scale general commercial for property described as Kokomo Executive Plaza, Section 3, lots 14 and 15, containing 2.8 acres more or less at 1401 East Hoffer Street in Kokomo, Indiana, to develop a manufactured home sales site. The requested zone change is considered an appropriate adjacent district within the following area, C1 and L1, which is light industrial. And I might want to say that all these ordinances we talked a lot about on the first reading, so that's kind of why I'm going over them this way. We've already discussed those.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions from the council? We had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion, or ordinance 6955.
Is 1-Z-20 is a C1, a small to medium scale general commercial, to an M2, which is a general multifamily residential. It's located at 402 and 404 West Superior Street, Kokomo, 46901. The petitioner is Kokomo Community Development. Second reading.
Mr. President, I'm asking for passage of ordinance 6955 on second reading.
Support.
Matt Johnson of Fortune Management is requesting a change in zoning classification from C1 small to medium scale general to M2 multifamily residential for property at 402 and 404 West Superior Street, Kokomo, Indiana. The plan is to develop a two-story, 16-unit multifamily dwelling with 8 one-bedroom and 8 two-bedroom apartments. The requested zone change is compatible with the adjacent properties. The City Plan Commission voted unanimously and forwarded a favorable recommendation to this council. The plan was presented to the BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals on February 4th. The petition of Fortune Companies, Inc. requested 5 variances of 3,320 square feet to minimum lot area, 39 square feet to minimum floor area per unit, 14% to maximum lot coverage, and 10 feet to the side yard setback, and variance of 8 parking spaces. Changes in square feet were made so that the structure is balanced architecturally, and this passed on 3 to 1. Mr. Pitcher, you're here to address this if you'd like to speak to the council, and thank you.
These up for the audience, and these are in your packets. I'd like to thank the council for hearing this tonight. I wish I would have presented it earlier, but I'm going to read it. I'm going to try to get through it quickly, but it's trying to be conclusive and address a lot of misconceptions there are about this type of product and housing in the community. One thing that we do is we use the Kokomo Comprehensive Plan as our guidelines for how we build product in the community and what we need to do. Our company bought our first building in 1982, downtown Kokomo. We've been doing buildings ever since. We just got into the multifamily within the last year because we recognized that that's where the biggest needs were, and we were continually getting calls from people that wanted to live downtown, and we didn't have any product for them. And I will say this too, when we quit getting those calls, we'll quit building. But as long as we know there's a need in the community, we try to meet that need. And we also try to meet the need based on the comprehensive plan. One of the big things there is infilling lots. And so that's what we're doing here. And so I'll read a couple things on the visions and goals, page 53. While seeking to create an environment that caters to potential new residents as well. I'm going to read snippets because we don't have 3 days. The city must continue to transform itself, responding to the ever-changing needs of the people that live in the community, and build the type of place where people want to live. On key issues, page 54, housing stock, housing diversity, rental diversity, housing prices, neighborhoods, and attracting new residents, which is part of what we're doing. On the goals, creating a genuine, urbanized, and unique identity for downtown Kokomo that attracts visitors and residents with walkability, density, and diversity. Objectives, page 63, remove barriers to infill development on vacant residential lots. Allow for a variety of low, mid, and high-intensity land uses to better ensure that there are diverse opportunities to live, work, and play. Page 65, encourage growth and development that promotes an increase in residential and employment density, a mix of uses, improved connectivity, and improvements that are at a pedestrian scale to create an attractive urban living environment. On the downtown goals, attract residents is a big thing, and it says create high-quality residential options. And on objectives, increase residential densities and non-residential intensities within the downtown to further its appeal as an urban center. Investigate, and this is an important one, investigate an incentive program that encourages investment of the land uses planned for downtown, such as retail, professional office, and attached single-family and multifamily housing options for a mix of incomes. So the incentive programs were part of the main objectives in the program, and what you have to do to make sense of a product like this to investors is the city needs to provide incentives until there's enough density that you don't need to anymore. But I mean, that's a major program, and it's occurring all across the country. One of the greatest examples is Indianapolis, that's been creating 2,500 units a year for the last 7 years. You know, and people said they'll never fill up, people don't want to live there, but what it is, people do. You know, maybe not our age, but there are people that want to live there. This is an infill project, which is vital in the comprehensive plan. If you have architecturally a few buildings in a row, then a big empty lot, that attracts crime, and that can be a problem. It attracts trash, and it just looks, that sits across from Foster Park, doesn't look good. You know, it just absolutely doesn't look good. If you look at the next page, it shows our site plan, which shows the same entry that the Turner building had. and about the same facade length that the Turner Building had, so we can fill that gap in. We're creating 24 parking spaces behind there, which is considered adequate because we have 16 units, 8 of which are one bedroom. One bedroom usually means one tenant, one car. A lot of 2 bedrooms only have one car in today's marketplace. And if you think about it, the city has spent a ton of money on the bus service and on trying to find ways to transport people, and that can be utilized with these tenants. The next is a picture of our facade. I think hopefully people know that we really care about the buildings we build. We care about how they look. We care about that they fit in the neighborhood. If you look at Market Street townhomes, we spent a huge amount of extra money making that look like it fit in a 100-year-old neighborhood. And that's evident. And we have people from other cities coming here that really like that product. We're zoning to a multifamily zoning, but here are the permitted uses for what the zoning is today. So we could go in there and put these kind of uses in. I'm just going to read a couple of them without getting zoning. All right, we could put in auto business, batting cages, nightclub, farmer's market, mortuary, party event rental place, sexually oriented business, and offices, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the point being, when people get nervous about change, we could put things there with no zoning that would have a lot worse impact, no, because we don't feel we're having any bad impact. That could go there. We wouldn't need zoning, so we're zoning for improvement. Next page, this is an interesting statistic. Okay, the units that are being built downtown, there's Sycamore Apartments, 58, College Apartments, 14, Macy Apartments, that's the old Y, 37, et cetera. There's 146 units being built at market rate workforce housing. This is not subsidized housing, okay? This is not low-income housing. And we've said this repeatedly. We've shown the product. The product we built on Main and Taylor Street is the same product. We brought that to the market 10 days ago, and it's 50% leased up as of this point in 10 days. That property will be leased up in 30 days, all right, with young Kokomo people. If we look at the 146, people say, who is building all these units or where they're going to live? We have infilled maybe 4 lots, and we have saved 4 historical buildings with the projects that are going on here. I own 4 of them. Other investors own 4 of them. Young investors like DJ, the next generation coming up, that's going to take over when somebody finally gets killed walking out of here or something. But anyway, we got a new generation coming also, and they understand this product, and that's why they're creating it. But if you look at 146 units, Bradford Run has 292 units. Park Place, 249 units. So you see, we're building about half as much downtown product as one big apartment complex in the suburbs. Next one is worker housing shorting. This was coming out of Indiana. Talks about how to address a housing shortage for workers. It's designed to increase workforce housing in the state. I'm bouncing around. These organizations further prove how important housing is in attracting and retaining talent. When you talk about brain drain and your children leaving this community because there's nothing here for them, this gives them a housing option. It gives them a place to live downtown where there are things to do. So all the infrastructure that's been put in the downtown and all the restaurants and all the business owners that are down here, most all the business owners, would understand that the next logical move in downtown redevelopment for Kokomo is multifamily housing and getting people to live here, in this area. So the housing market impacts hiring and retention, and housing that is attainable for Hoosiers of all income levels, and that focuses on improving quality of life. The next page, we got remaking vacant lots to cut crime. Crime was brought up at a meeting, and I don't understand why people think apartment means crime, because it doesn't. What happens in apartments is if you have 249 units, there may be 5 calls there because it's a compressed density. But if you look at the 10 blocks around there may have been 10 calls, but they're spread out. Apartments don't mean crime. And market rate housing definitely doesn't mean crime. We screen our people for credit and crimes, and we screen them pretty hard. So the last thing a developer would want to do would be to spend $1.5 million on a building and then move people into it that were going to tear it up or that weren't going to pay. I mean, that's the quickest way to go out of business. So vacant and abandoned spaces invite crime. How can one assume that market rate complex will be filled with criminals? We screen for credit rating criminal offenses. We're not building a work release facility, you know, so it's not what this is. The screening process ensures that our new tenants are responsible adults. And I already talked about the other part. Apartments do not inherently attract residents who are less neighborly or more apt to engage in or attract criminal activity. Implying criminals live in apartments is very important, insulting to existing apartment dwellers. The data I've got here came from, number one, the Kokomo Comprehensive Plan, and the other one was from a Harvard study done a few years ago about multifamily housing. Talk about parking. If you look at the picture, we're adding 24 spaces, but we own the 24 spaces adjacent to that, which of 3 spaces are used daily. So we have 21 additional spaces behind this development. If there is a parking issue, we are not going to lose tenants because all of a sudden we have too many cars. We have the additional parking. We own the overflow parking. It can be connected with a 12-foot sidewalk, and we solve any problems that could potentially be there. 1-bedroom units usually have 1 car. 2-bedroom units can have 2 cars, but sometimes 1. The adjacent bar next to this building here seats 250. So 250 people, if that bar was open, could go there. The adjacent park can hold 1,000 people. Okay, we hold 16 apartments. You know, so at the most we'll have 24 people. Also, and this was mentioned in the BZA, the city, if there is problems with some parking there, the city can put 20-minute rotation parking in, you know, limit 20 minutes, and solve any issues if people were squatting on those lots. Okay, there's a difference between subsidized housing and HUD housing, okay? Or no, that's the same. Between market rate housing and HUD housing, all right? There is a difference. But I wouldn't be ashamed to build HUD housing here, you know, because people have a right to get and live in good homes, you know, have an option to live in good homes. This isn't that product. You know, and people want to say it's HUD housing, like that relates to crime, and it doesn't. You know what I mean? That's a fallacy that exists in this community. So if you really study it and you really look at the crime records and look at the neighborhoods versus the density of the apartments that have problems, they're about level as far as crime goes. You know, crime is not about the type of housing, okay? And this rumor that Chicago people are moving in here and shooting them up, there are Chicago people that come down here for the drug trade. Everybody realizes that. They don't live in my units. You know, we have units downtown. We have townhomes, and they don't live. And I've asked for data. When people say that to me, show me the data where these people are coming from Chicago to live here, and nobody's ever produced any. Also, on this, and I'm bouncing around a little bit, this is the 6th mayor I've had the pleasure to work with in Kokomo, the 6th. We've had Democrats, Republicans. I'm a registered Republican, so I think we're on the same team. I was dealing with Mr. Goodnight. I think he did a lot of great things for this city. Some people liked him and some didn't. But the decisions to be made here are not based on who you like. It's based on what's best for this community. Should we provide housing for our young people? You know, should we provide diverse housing for people? Should we try to keep people in this community with housing options? And I guarantee you, the minute they don't fill up, I quit. You know, I'm not going to build too much housing. When we started downtown in '82, people thought, who is this guy? And he remembers. See, he was 64 back then. But anyway, something like that. But you've seen that. You know, and everybody said, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work. Well, it works. You know, and it continues to work. And we're going to continue to push this city forward with that kind of product. Read a couple things from Harvard for you real quick. What kind of community should we build? You know, should we produce housing for young and diverse workers? Multifamily rental housing has long been an important part of the constellation of housing choices for families and individuals. It plays an increasingly important role in workforce housing, providing homes for our nation's teachers, firefighters, police officers, healthcare workers, and public employees. These vital workers contribute to the community, but their incomes are often less than what is required to support a comfortable middle-class life. And I could read this on and on and on. It just states that you need to, as a growing community, keep offering housing options for people. And we're fortunate in Kokomo that there's investors and banks willing to invest in this, because there's communities that surround us that are getting no buildings, nothing. And if you don't remain progressive and remain pushing this Kokomo forward, then you'll end up like some of these cities that just have big gaps all over where nobody wants to invest in them. So I just say we got unanimous approval from the Plan Commission. The director of the Plan Commission gave us a favorable recommendation and said we would not affect parking. We had BZA support, Kerry Stranahan, the city engineer. So the experts that work for the city, that get paid for the city, are all in support of this project because they understand we need to fill in these gaps and we need to create this housing. Last page, I promise. Let's look at the positives or the big pictures, because sometimes we get to hearing so much negativity that people forget to look at the positive things. This furthers the community's creation of a vibrant downtown. It follows the objectives set out in the comprehensive plans, adds density, and follows urban housing trends. It creates tax base. I mean, this is going to create, you got an empty hole there that pays nothing, that doesn't help your schools, doesn't help your city, and this will create a pretty large tax base. Infills a blighted lot, true sustainable development, brings young people downtown, brings people downtown to support local restaurants and services, creates a successful example, excuse me, of people wanting to invest in downtown. And so how do you entice people to invest in your town? You got to be progressive. You know, current projects save 4 historical buildings, and keeping projects local grows jobs locally. It enhances local property values. A couple of people showed up at the BZA. Number one, Cartwright Ellis, who lives in the house behind there, says Ellis, fully supports the project. He was an appraiser for 40 years. Kathy Knoll, who owns the building next to us that we will be attached to, was phenomenally in support of the project because she knows it'll bring her building value. I own the property behind it. I truly support the project. I wouldn't build next to it if I thought it was going to destroy my value. This utilizes the city's investments in infrastructure and amenities, trails, streetscape, buses. I mean, everything the city spent the last decade, 15 years building, this utilizes, okay? So it utilizes those assets. And then I think that's all I've got. I'll respond and answer your question. Anybody got anything?
I have a question.
Sure.
You just mentioned through the positive things that this creates the tax base. Have you received government funding for this project?
Oh, yes, absolutely. If I hadn't
Have you
received...
received in government funding for this project?
Say what now?
How much money have you received for this project given from the city or?
$490,000. I haven't received anything. The money goes into the project as the money's completed, you know, and if you don't get city incentives, you don't get bank lending. So if you want these projects, the city has to be a partner in them, just like they were a partner in the Ball Diamond, like they're a partner in the pool, like they're a partner in going to be the convention center. You have to have urban partnerships or nothing's going to get done. You know, somebody has to go in and prove this product's going to work. And believe me when I tell you, no bank was going to lend normally like they would on a regular project on that project. So if you don't bring the city money, you don't get the project.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Are you going to ask for any tax abatements for this project past this?
Any what now?
Tax abatements?
No.
None?
No.
Okay.
Is there still time?
I don't know. This was a past project that was passed on to us, so I'm asking questions right now.
No.
No, okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Petcher,
Yes.
looking at this, it appears that the entrance to these units, it faces towards the parking lot. So, I mean, is that a correct statement?
The entrance faces our parking lot?
Yes.
Yes, if I understand the question, yes.
Okay, so people would naturally be inclined to park in the parking lot as opposed to parking out on the street. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, and predominantly all the entrances are from the rear.
Yes.
We have patio entrances out front, but everything enters from the rear, so if somebody was to park on the street, they'd have a long walk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions from the council?
Thank you.
What I'd like to find out now is how many in the audience would like to speak to this issue? Let me count. 1, 2, count them. 3, 4,
All right, so we limit this
5, 6,
3 minutes.
7,
Time.
9.
Lynn,
Okay.
11 or 12.
12 or 13.
12 or 13.
Yeah, limited per person. I'm timing
3 minutes. Okay.
per person.
What we would,
oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
what we would like to do is invite you to come up. We need your name and your address, and we're going to give you 3 minutes, okay, to tell us what your concerns are.
James E. Meck III, 206 Conrad, property owner at 320 West Superior. And my concerns have been from the very beginning about parking. The traffic along Superior Street, we don't know the effect of the skating park's going to have on it. But right now, it's barely passable for about 7 months out of the year. And so now we're going to put more traffic there. Mr. Pritchard, yes, states that he wants to put an alley in so you can make it from Sycamore Street to Superior Street. That's not what he's calling it, but if you do an entrance off of Superior Street, put a pathway back there, isn't that now just an alley like where Ryan County is just down the way? Don't know. But I do know that this is not necessary for this property. I do want to offer an apology for Mr. Sheeline. He incorrectly stated that it was his department that fined Mr. Hearn out of the property. It was not. It was the Building and Zoning Commission, and I was incorrect on the amount. They fined Mr. Hearn $250,000 after his building burned. They required him in the settlement that he gave them the property plus $10,000 to get out of the $250,000 worth of fine, all because his building burned, even though it was cleaned up and torn down in less than a year. His plan was to rebuild commercial there. Now, I've been to 4 meetings. The Kokomo Community Development Corporation owns this lot. Why have they not presented? Why in Mrs. Sanders' statement, when Matt Johnson spoke, she never declared that he was a representative of the Kokomo Commercial Development Corporation. Nobody in this meeting has stated that Mr. Pitcher is a representative of the Kokomo Commercial Development Corporation. Don't we get to approach the property owner? Doesn't the property owner have to present? I also looked too. Has anybody paid any taxes on this property, the Kokomo Commercial Development Corporation, since it burned? No. So once again, you guys, this whole committee, not you guys, the Planning Commission, comes up with this comprehensive plan that makes anything any developer wants to do to move new people into Kokomo look viable. It doesn't state anything about the impact of the neighborhood west, of the property owners, Mr. Rum, myself, that are doing business along Superior Street. This is all about the ability of one company to make money there on that lot. That's what this is about. This is not about, oh, we need this, we need that. And the other thing is, are we downtown property? I mean, it's always been cut off of Washington Street. Sometimes I'm downtown property, sometimes I'm not. It only depends on who it's convenient for, whether or not you call me downtown property. We've been there for over 50 years, and now we're downtown property, I guess. Didn't know we were, but I am against this, not only, and it has nothing to do with apartments. It has to do with we're putting too many units in too big of a space. You could only build one home there.
Thank you, Jim.
Right. Thank you.
Name and address, please.
Terry Roach, 900 East Lordeman Street. I don't want the zone to be changed. Mr. Pitcher, you make beautiful buildings. If you want to build on this property, build something that a skateboard business can move into or something like that, where business, because I just see on down the road all kind of trouble. We ain't gonna have the car shows right there on the street. Who gonna bring up their fancy car to show it off for the car show? With an apartment complex across the way with people running around trying to get in and out. He said he's gonna build a road from Sycamore to get in there to the parking lot. I still see trouble with Foster Park. We have too much fun at Foster Park. We have too much fun at Foster Park with the free music, and I just don't want the car shows to go away from that street. And people ain't gonna bring their nice cars to have a car show. I just don't want the zoning to change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I just have a few little notes here. My name is Natalie Guestborn. I live at 115 South McCann Street in Kokomo. I would like to thank the council for taking this issue under advisement. I'm here because of a paper that was left at my house encouraging the neighbors in the Old Silk Stocking to come oppose and to oppose measures to build affordable or low-income housing, as it was put on the paper, which I found to be very misleading. I live right around the corner from the proposed apartment site on the 400 block of West Superior Street. I attend church just a couple doors down at St. Andrew's Church. This building is literally in my proverbial backyard, and it is needed. We know good worker housing is a barrier to employment, to health, to safety and stability for many. On any given day, there are letters to the editor and social media posts lamenting the homelessness in Kokomo or the fact that young professional people leave and don't want to live here. How hypocritical of us to lament homelessness and poverty and brain drain while doing nothing to address it. Being a part of a vibrant and diverse community means that we welcome everyone. Being part of beloved community means that we make space for all, even people that don't look like us, or have as much money as we do, or live like us, or need a 3,000 square foot house like my family. For those reasons, I support the new housing on Superior Street and ask that you will too.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Debbie Reeder. I'm at 430 Elliott Court, and I oppose this because that is a very small property, and I don't know what you're going to charge for those units, but it can't be very much because they're going to be very small. And you say that usually one bedroom is one person. One bedroom can hold two people, and today, if you've got the money, you're going to have two cars for that. And so the two bedrooms is going to be even more. So I'm afraid that we're going to see more cars downtown. I think it's going to be low-income people. I've been a victim of a drug issue, and I don't want to see drugs coming into that neighborhood. I don't want to see it down at the park. I'm very much against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Robinson, and I own the property next to this lot right here. When I bought that property, it was ran down. There was people living in there, squatters living in there. I bought the property. They're talking beautification, but when I bought the property was in shambles. I did everything I could to build that property up and make it to where it was livable. I got no help from anyone. I asked for help from the city every time grants came by. They would promise me they would give me grants. They promised me they'd give me grants. So what I want to know is every other property that's on this street was mentioned except for my property. So how is this going to affect my property? Because nobody's mentioning that I own the property right next to this. You understand what I'm saying? And my kids live there and my family lives there. So in order for this to be built, what compensation am I going to get for my space being condensed? Not only that, parking, it's crowded, it's congested on the street. I'm not saying that I'm against it, but I am saying that I would like to be put in this plan some type of way in order to, because I don't understand it.
Contact Mike.
Scotty.
We've contacted Mike multiple times to try to meet with him and present our plan to him. We just never got together. You know what I mean? So we would be glad to meet with him, show him the product we're building on Main Street, because this will be similar to that. And I would guess at the BZA, Phil Johnston, who praises property in Kokomo for 40 years, presented and said that this project will in no way devalue any properties in the neighborhoods. He has 40 years experience in Kokomo, and $1.5 million investment there can only help values. And once again, when we sit up here and say this is not going to be low-income housing, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't care if it was, it's still not going to devalue anybody's home, you know, because investment creates investment, and that will pay taxes, and it'll pay a huge amount more taxes than that empty lot will ever pay, and it'll pay a lot more taxes than the Turner Building paid when they were open. Thanks.
Mr. Petcher, just so we can be clear, there's been quite a bit of discussion about it being low income. Can you share with us what you expect the rental rates to be for the 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, just so we can...
It'd be $899 for the 2 bedrooms and probably $725 for the 1 bedrooms. Thank you.
Mike Rickey, 624 West Superior. I've got 2 concerns about this, and usually when you look at a rezoning, there's 2 things you have to look at. And infrastructure is the primary thing, and Scott alluded to infrastructure around the downtown, but I think the infrastructure in this specific property is unsuitable primarily because of the parking, and it's incompatible with the existing properties that are there on Superior Street. The primary issue is obviously traffic flow. From 4 to 7, when Room Academy is in full swing, the road is barely passable. Granted, there's going to be parking off street, but you're going to have traffic inflows going onto Superior Street, and if you've got parking along Superior Street during those heavy hours, you've got a congested area that's going to be very difficult to try and navigate. I know it was mentioned in the last meeting the city trolley is a plus. The city trolley, when it drives down Superior, basically does not acknowledge traffic. It just barrels through. So traffic flow is probably a huge concern. And even though there's going to be off-street parking, I understand that, but there's also going to still be some parking there on Superior Street during 4 to 7. When you get to the summer hours, when Jay's ice cream shop is open, you've got Room Academy. On Sunday morning, there are masses at Room Academy, and there's parking there along that road. So between the parking there, if there's any off-street parking with the apartments, as well as the parking behind the apartments, you're going to have issues with those cars coming onto Superior Street with parking, and it's just going to make things even worse. The problem is it's just a congested area. You're going to by putting this in, you're going to create more congestion, and you're putting too much in such a small area. The other problem, as I said, while this development may have its merits, logistically it doesn't seem practical because the surrounding properties are all commercial. And so from that standpoint, you've got commercial properties. You had a viable commercial property there until the city took it away from Mr. Hearn, and it was a suitable property. It did not have any impact on traffic flows. It was a well-run property. Residential properties don't start until you get to the west of St. Andrew Church. So from that standpoint, trying to put a residential property into this area where you've got primarily commercial properties, once again, I feel is incompatible and doesn't make sense. And I'll leave you with this final thought. They changed the layout of Superior Street. It was supposed to be a great thing for traffic along the way. It was going to slow traffic, make things great. They did this with the layout that they had existing at that time, where you had the Turner Building and everything else. When you put this in, would the city have changed the traffic flow of Superior or done a change of Superior Street knowing that a project like this was coming in? I offer to you that they would not have done that. And so from that standpoint, because of the insufficient infrastructure, the incompatible properties, and the change that they made to Superior Street, without something like this being in mind, I ask that you vote against this. Thank you.
I'd like to correct Mr. Rickey about the residential aspect. The property I own that backs up to that has a residence in it. The property Mr. Ellis owns has 2 or 3 residents in it. The property Mr. Robinson owned, he just testified, is a residence. So of the 4 properties that surround this property. 3 of them are residential, so it does fit here. And also Kathy Knoll testified at the BZA that she is 100% for this project because she knows it'll increase the value of her building.
Next.
Steve Solis, 607 South Webster. I don't have a dog in this fight at all, so it's not there, but I know we've just added the skateboard park to there. Parking has always been a problem. We moved our concerts from downtown on the square down to Foster Park. One of our concerts about 2 years ago, we climbed up in the Ferris wheel. Counted the people, like 8,000 people came to that concert. And we got young families walking from 6 and 8 blocks away and bringing their kids to go to these concerts. I don't know whether the city is still involved and they can change your mind, but I'd much rather see that area be a flat parking lot for the concerts to go to Foster Park and add more buildings in there, because there's no parking on that street at all for our concerts or the skateboard park that they just added. Thank you.
My name is Sandy Alcoyne, and I live at 145 South Phillips Street. And I have lived in my home for 39 years, and my husband and I have spent a lot of money and a lot of time keeping our home nice. And I'm just worried about bringing more changes to our neighborhood. And driving down that street is absolutely horrible. The traffic is always bad. There's hardly any room to get down the street because of the parking, and you always have to worry about people backing out and hitting you. And I can't hardly believe that a one-bedroom apartment only have 1 car, and a 2-bedroom apartment maybe have 1 or 2 cars. And I'm just worried about what it's going to do to our neighborhood and the noise and the inflow of more people. So I hope you will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lynn Jernigan. I live on 1222 West Carter Street, right across the street from McKinley School. And he said it's not, these apartments aren't dragging in low-income people from out of state and stuff. The principal across the street at the school said he's getting tons of them. He's having nothing but trouble over at the school. And that's what I don't understand, why he wants to build one as close as to the Foster Park. We don't need no apartments close to Foster Park. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Jansen. I'm from 620 West Superior Street. On a normal day, for me to get home from work, I have to avoid at least 3 or 4 cars trying to go down Superior Street. It is basically almost a one-way street, especially if any of the trolleys or buses or Spirit of Kokomo buses are coming down, because you cannot get through. Can also not get down when a school bus or fire engine or any of the city vehicles are trying to get down that road. So adding the additional of 16 apartments with possibly 30 drivers going in and out of there most of the time during the same time everybody else is trying to get up and down that street, it's just going to cause a bigger problem. I have more accidents. The entranceway comes right off of into where they're doing the parking across from the park. And it hasn't been discussed. The street's closed at least 6 times during the summer. So the entranceway from Sycamore Street down will actually become a main passageway for everybody to get through. It's closed during Haynes, it's closed during free concerts, so nobody's allowed to park down the street. So this is all stuff I really think we'd think of, and it's a very small space to put 16 units. So I really hope you'd vote no. Thank you.
Any further? Yes, sir.
Hello, Nolan Bourne, 115 South McCann Street. Tell just kind of 2 stories, my past life and my current life. So I moved to Kokomo about 5 years ago, and I wanted to live downtown. I'm a college educated. I came here for a job, professional job. And so I wanted to live downtown. There was nowhere to live. I ended up living in a less than stellar apartment in downtown, just because I was willing to live there, to be near downtown. And I stayed in Kokomo because I believed in the vision and I believed in what we were doing. But I know there are plenty of other people who wouldn't have done that, my age, college educated, who wouldn't have done that if there wasn't any housing inventory for them who were looking exactly for what I was looking for. So, I mean, at $800 a month, that's not low income. That is for professional young people and even retirees looking to downsize. That is what this product is for. So the scaremongering people use with low income, I've heard it before. You're going to hear it your entire careers. You're also going to hear people say, I like it, but just don't put it in my backyard. You're going to hear that every time you have a meeting. I'm someone who lives a 10-minute walk from this place. Please put it in my backyard.
Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm good with it.
Hi, my name's Margaret Phillips. I live at 1610 West Taylor Street in Kokomo. We moved to Kokomo for my husband to work at IUK. We moved from Michigan and came here. We have a number of friends who work at IUK who have moved here from Chicago, Ohio, and cannot find housing, could not find housing, nice housing, for the price they wanted to pay. They wanted to pay like around $800 to $900 a month, which is what they are currently paying, but they're living in Greentown. These are the kind of people that he wants to attract, and this is the kind of people I think that Kokomo wants to attract. You know, no one said it here, but people on social media say they don't want people from Chicago, they want people from Michigan, wherever, moving to Kokomo. And I find this really sad and very unwelcoming, because that's not really what I found when I moved to Kokomo. I found the people here very nice and friendly. And, you know, people who are looking to move to Kokomo, maybe somebody who's looking to take a job at IUK, will see this stuff online and say, you know, I don't really want to move there. So I just want to say that, you know, I have 3 friends, 3 professional friends, advanced degrees, living in Greentown now because they couldn't find rental housing in Kokomo that was really nice and attractive. So maybe not, you know, I'm not addressing anything about your concerns about parking and whatnot, but just keep in mind the fact that there is a university in this town, and there are people who come in from the university, come in from, you know, other countries, other states, other cities to work here. And they need nice rental housing because not everyone is prepared to buy a house. You know, maybe they're just visiting professors or not ready to buy. So that's all.
Thank you.
My name is Mac Bowers. I live at 900 West Superior Street. First off, I'd like to say, Scott, you've done an amazing job in Kokomo with the buildings, and the product that you have is amazing, and it is something that we've needed. That you mentioned earlier about when you started in '82 and people telling you that you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. Coming from being a youngster back in that time, you know, I had the same kind of problems growing up. You know, there's nothing in Kokomo to do. There's nowhere to go. Blah blah blah. Scott, you've truly been a great inspiration for downtown Kokomo, without a doubt.
Can you stop right there?
Yeah.
So
thanks for coming.
So I live, you know, obviously in this neighborhood, and one of the reasons why we bought the home we bought is to be close to downtown, be close to Haynes Apperson and all the festivals going on at the park. And you know, I agree with what the lady before me just said. You know, I know that there is a need for this type of housing in Kokomo. My only concern is that it's right there, and it brings up the other issues that I've heard from the other people speaking. Traffic is a nightmare going down that street. Had they done anything else to Superior Street, I wish they would have never done that. It just makes it real difficult to get from Indiana Street to Washington Street when rum's going on full force, when the churches are letting in and out. adding more people coming in and out of that area right there seems to me like it's going to add some more issues. And I made mention in the last meeting that it's almost on a weekly basis every other day. I come home from work, I turn off of Washington Street, I see a car sitting in one of those parking spots with a busted rim and a flat tire. This morning, on my way to work, somebody hit the one in front of Run Music Academy and knocked the light post down. So, you know, that's two in the last 2 weeks, just in the last 7 days, as a matter of fact. So those are my concerns. I mean, the crime and everything, I try not to buy too much into what a lot of people in town says. I think that's just the world that we live in, unfortunately, these days. And I don't think that necessarily apartment complexes maybe bring that in. More so it's just the people that are bringing it themselves. My hope as a resident in this community, like I said, I don't wish to see it because of the traffic issues that we have. And that would be about my only dog in the fight. And so with that, I appreciate your guys' time, and I wish you lots of luck, Mr.
Mr. President, may I ask Mr. Pitcher a question? May I ask Mr.
I didn't hear.
May I ask Mr. Pitcher a question? Mr. Pitcher.
Okay. Sure.
You've changed some things since the BZA meeting, and is it my understanding that you're going to be having an entrance for the 24 parking lots that you have, that it would adjoin the other parking places off of Sycamore Street?
No, what we said was we would provide a sidewalk. We wouldn't provide a pathway through there because, number one, I don't want the traffic. Did I miss the question?
No, I don't think you heard my question.
You didn't hear the
my
question.
My question is this entrance to those parking lots, is it on Sycamore Street?
You show on your layout
Got a motion and a
two
second,
parking.
Yeah, and and this is a new thing. Yeah. So I just,
See that? 24 and
This is the
24.
one I already own.
You own that.
This is the one.
and
we
this
built.
is,
But you're going to attach these two.
yeah, but
and this
so the
is
only,
Sycamore.
the entrance will always be on Sycamore, on Superior then, correct? Yeah. It's just,
Right.
okay, that's,
And that
I
was
just,
her
I
question.
was just, yeah, thank you, appreciate that, thank you.
See,
That was an important question. We are not connecting those parking lots and creating a thoroughfare through Superior to Sycamore. We're connecting them with a pedestrian walkway, so we have no intention of connecting them
that's fine.
like that.
It would be built in such a way that a car couldn't drive through there.
Right.
Yes, sir. Doesn't mean they won't, but we'll build it that way. But the other thing I failed to bring up, Chrysler's going to spend $400 million in our community in the next couple of years. That will create a need for housing because they'll be bringing people in that want 2-year deals, to engineer those projects, to build those projects. You'll have craftsmen. You'll have all kinds of people looking for housing within the next couple of years that we can help provide.
Right.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions from the council? Oh,
There's another one.
Good evening, Paul Wyman, 1533 West Lincoln Road, Kokomo. I'd like to clarify a couple things regarding parking and festivals and concerts, since that seemed to come up quite a bit tonight. At the Haynes-Apperson Festival, I'll use for example, and even a lot of the summer concert series, Superior Street's closed during that time. So having these apartments here is not going to create a parking issue for the summer concert series or the festival. When that street's closed down, there is no parking on that street. So whoever's living in the apartments is going to have to find an alternative situation, no different than anybody else along that road. So you take Gary Rum, for example, he has no off-street parking. But Superior Street's closed when he's operating his business, and his people find alternatives to that. So there is no burden on festivals. There's no burden on the summer concert series by these apartments being in place. So from that standpoint, I don't want you all to be concerned that's going to create some kind of havoc, or if you're going to be able to try to use that place as a parking lot, because you wouldn't be able to use it as a public parking lot. The street would be closed. There'd be no access to it anyway. So I just wanted to clarify that.
thank you. Sir,
Come up to the.
sir, come up.
Jeff Jansen, 620 West Superior Street. Yes, the street is closed. Residents are asked not to park on the street. And every year, we have to push off at least 50 to 75 cars because everybody else parks on the street. So Superior Street is closed, but there's still parking. So, and that's for everything, concerts, Haynes-Apperson, and everything. And that's the other thing that gets me is that I do live there, and I'm asked not to park on the street. So when I have a 4th of July party like we have every year, all of our guests have to park down another parking spot, and we shuttle them back up when everybody else just parks on the street. So there is still parking, even though there's not supposed to be, which is our fear for what's going on with this one. There's still parking on the street.
I would just like to address one more thing about
State
the
your name.
State your name
Mac
and
Bowers, 900 West Superior Street. Sorry. So when we have Superior Street closed from Washington to Indiana Street, then the residents that live in that apartment complex then would still be able to use Superior Street to come in and out, or would they just be shut in at that time?
They could use Sycamore Street parking lot and walk.
So you'd expect your residents to park off street and walk?
It'd be closer there than any place else that's, we own that parking lot behind there.
Right, so then they would have to park off of Sycamore and then use the pedestrian walkway to get to their units when we have the concerts or all that going on. They couldn't use the parking spot in front of their apartment.
They couldn't, if what everybody's saying is they shut the street down, they'd still have access to their units.
Okay.
Mike Robinson, 420 West Superior Street. Now, he's saying that they shut the street down, but in between Rum Academy and my house, there is a alley, driveway, whatever you want to call it, that goes from Superior to Sycamore Street. And during those festivals and whatever they have at Foster Park, it's always congested. I got people parking in my yard. I got people double parking back there, blocking that parking lot off. So that's going to congest it even more as far as parking and traffic coming through there. So what do we plan to do about that situation? Because that's been a problem already.
We, as a developer, when we go in and we invest in the community and we invest in a unit like this, I can't solve everybody's anxiety and problems, and I can't fix existing conditions that have been there for 20, 25 years. I mean, that's not my responsibility. You know, our responsibility is to create good development for the community and make sure we don't have a negative value on the surrounding properties, and we believe this project does that. I can't fix everybody's problem.
Is there anybody new who hasn't spoke yet? Anyone? Call for the vote. Council.
Good evening. My name is Mitch Brown. I live at 1106 West Superior. I'm a neighbor on the west side. While I support Mr. Pitcher's view for improving our community and the need that we have for low-income or moderate-priced housing, I'm opposed to this project because I feel that it will bring too much congestion to the area, and that with the park and the commercial businesses that are in the area and the pedestrian traffic that we've tried to encourage in Kokomo, that this project is, it's just too high intensity. It's a high density project. I'm not sure that 8 units would work in this location, and he's proposing 16 units. I see problems with traffic, and I see that this project could just endanger our citizens and our pedestrian traffic in the park and those areas. You know, I like what Mr. Pitcher's done, but I just don't feel that this project's a good fit for the site. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I didn't want to, I knew we'd have to vote today, and I didn't want to make a decision without going out there and really walking around the whole area. And I went out and I spoke to the Rum Academy, and I talked to Sam, and they were fine with it. They said they were a little concerned about parking. I talked to Andy, who is a lawyer, who is behind the accountant's office, and they were both fine with it. They were concerned about parking. I talked to I stopped at Mr. Robinson's house. He wasn't there. I hope your kids told you that I came by there, me and Councilman Kibbens. But the last meeting, the biggest issue was parking. Now, if that issue is solved by additional 24, so is the parking not the issue really now? I understand what you're saying, but when we came here last time, the big issue was ain't enough parking spaces. So that parking space issue was solved with additional 24. And so, is it you just don't want it, period?
I wasn't saying that. I wasn't here at the last meeting, that's my problem. But what I'm saying is, building this next to my house.
You got to come up, come.
Michael Robinson, 420 West Superior Street. Building this next to my home, how is that going to help my property value when it goes for me to sell or whatever I decide to do? Because, I mean, who wants to live next door to an apartment building? With, you know, and they're saying that it's going to be $800 to live in these apartments and it's going to be this. But nowadays, you can't tell who's going to be able to pay $800. Anybody can say, oh yeah, I'm going to pay $800 and move into this apartment building, and you don't know who's living in there, you know? But they're not going to be checking to see who's living in this apartment building, what's going on in this apartment building. All they know is they're collecting $800 for rent in this apartment building. So Foster Park is already plagued with drugs and some lightweight violence and different things that go on down there at night under the bridge and that type of thing. So if we're bringing more of that to the area in a condensed building, then, I mean, I don't know. I just think we just need to weigh it out.
Okay, thank you. What I want to stick to now is everybody's had a chance to speak. I want to hear what the council has to questions about, if any.
Yeah, I have one question for Mr. Pitcher. You said you've moved your direction of your building into the multifamily in the last year because you've seen a need for that.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
You said that you moved your business aspects to the multi-building because you've seen a need for that in your development of buildings.
We didn't move our entire business. We moved some of our resources into that.
My next question: are you going to continue to try to build like you did out in the Abbey Way out there, the single-family dwellings? Are you going to continue to try to do them in areas of our city?
I mean, it's not on my agenda right now, and I'll tell you why. To build a subdivision, it takes approximately 2 years of planning and investment before you have a lot ready. So you're going to spend a huge amount of money getting a lot ready. So let's say you produce 40 lots, okay, and that's going to take a couple of years to absorb. I don't want to play that long, okay?
And that kind of leads me into my next question. We can build all these buildings, and I hear the people talk about the people coming from different locations, you know, from Michigan and the professionals, but I still just don't see that we have the jobs in our community to support all of the
What data have you studied, Jason? And I'm asking this with all due respect. How much data have you studied about what's needed in the community?
A small fraction, but yeah. my point is when we continue, and I'm not completely opposed to you building this, just so you know, I'm not completely opposed to it. I like the looks of the building. I've seen a lot of your product that you build, and it is good. It's nice product. I mean, some of the buildings that you build, I bring my family to that's from out of town and go, for instance, the one right down the road here. You know, it's a really neat looking storybook building, you know, something that come out of Harry Potter, you know, and I bring, you know, people, I've showed people that building and neat building. But my point is, I just feel that we don't have, we have a lot of housing opportunities for people, and I've called some of the locals, you know, today. I made some phone calls to some of our local apartments to see what their percentages was, and I had a few people tell me, you know, that they was at the 70% range and one at 82, and then a couple people wouldn't give me that information. So I know that we're not completely up to capacity on apartments. The 301 district over here is not up to, you know, and the lady here was talking about, you know, people coming from Michigan and wanting to, you know, higher end apartments. Well, them have been there for 3 or 4 years. When was, you know, did your people?
Jason, we're not going to build product that isn't going to get occupied. We have to go through a process, and I have to sign the bank loans personally, meaning I'm guaranteeing that this product makes sense. So we do the data work, the banks do the data work, You know what I mean? Everybody studies this. The city studies it, their studies say so, the comprehensive plan says so, all the data says so, and that's what we go on. And so we just finished 400 North Main Street. We put 14 units into the market 10 days ago, and 7 of them are leased now. You know, the same units we're going to build here. Within 30 days, that property will be filled up, and hopefully we'll have another generation behind it to fill it up also. We don't build this because we're stupid, and with all due respect, I mean, I'm not building stuff nobody wants. That doesn't work.
I never would think you would build anything that you didn't make money on. You're a man that wants to make money. You're not going to do something that you're going to lose money on.
I've cared more about building this town my whole career than I have making money.
No.
My work proves it.
No, and I'm saying I'm just saying that, you know, you're a developer and you're a man that wants to make money. You're not going to do something to not allow you to make a dollar off of it. I mean, it's a business world.
Not going to do something that won't be successful.
There you go.
And the minute that the minute that we recognize that the demand for these units have quit, we'll stop building. You know, I mean, if we build Superior Street and it takes way too long to lease it up, we're not going to build the next one.
Just an off-the-wall question on this one here. Do you think if they wouldn't have done the issues to the roads on Superior Street, the redevelopment of that road over the course of the last few years, that these people wouldn't be here complaining about the parking situation?
Quite a possibility. And that's, once again, I can't affect pre-existing conditions.
Right.
I can only try to add to the community.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the council? We have a motion and a second that we approve this. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Would you do the roll?
Acord.
No.
Collins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Huh? I couldn't hear her. This is an easy one. When we get our one. Gotcha. No. No.
Griecu.
Yes.
Rudolph.
Aye.
McKibben. No. Sanders.
Aye.
Miklick.
Aye.
5-3.
5-4. Who's the 4?
5-3.
5-3.
5-3 should be Diane.
5-3.
Ordinance.
That's what I'm thinking.
The ordinance passed. Being no further business, this council is adjourned.